Remember when the milkman's truck would rumble down your street before sunrise, leaving glass bottles with paper caps on snowy porches across the neighborhood? There was a time in Canada when everyday life had a different rhythm. You'd pick up a rotary phone and hear your neighbor chatting on the party line. You'd circle toys in the Eaton's wish book like it was a sacred ritual. You'd crack open a stubby beer bottle during hockey night and smell ditto sheets fresh off the purple-inked duplicator at school. Today we're rewinding the clock to explore 15 common things Canadians did in the 60s, 70s, and 80s that vanished without a trace. Milk delivery in glass bottles. Picture this. It's a February morning in 1968, and you shuffle to your front door in slippers. Sitting on the porch is a wire carrier holding 4 glass bottles, each one topped with a cardboard cap. In winter, the cream would freeze and push the cap up like a little hat. You'd chip off the milk ring with a spoon, pour yourself a glass, and leave a note in the empty bottle for tomorrow's order. 2 homo, 1 chocolate, please. This wasn't some fancy service for the rich. Milk delivery was standard across Canadian neighborhoods well into the late 60s. Local dairies like Silverwoods, Beatrice, and Dairy World ran morning routes through suburbs and small towns. The dairy truck was as reliable as the sunrise. Drivers knew your family, your dog, and exactly how you liked your order. It defined the morning soundtrack, the clink of glass, the rattle of crates, the hum of the refrigerated truck idling at the curb. So why did it vanish? Blame bigger fridges, supermarket expansion, and cheaper packaging. As grocery chains built massive stores with dairy aisles, the economics of home delivery crumbled. Paper cartons and plastic jugs were lighter, cheaper, and didn't need to be returned. By the mid-70s, routes were shrinking. By the 80s, most dairies had abandoned residential delivery altogether. The glass bottles, with their embossed logos and satisfying weight, became relics. Today, a few boutique dairies have brought it back, but the golden age of universal milk delivery? Gone for good. Party line telephones. You'd pick up the phone to make a call and hear Mrs. Henderson from 3 doors down gossiping about the church bake sale. Welcome to party line telephones, where one phone line was shared by multiple households. It wasn't a glitch. It was the system. In rural Canada and small towns during the 60s, private phone lines were expensive or simply unavailable, so families shared. You'd have a specific ring pattern to know when the call was for you, 2 short rings and 1 long or 3 short. Everyone on the line had a code. Phone etiquette mattered. You didn't pick up if it wasn't your ring. You kept calls short. And yes, some folks eavesdropped. It was a small-town soap opera playing out in real time. Why did party lines fade? Technology caught up. As phone companies expanded infrastructure and introduced digital switching, private lines became affordable and standard by the 70s and 80s. Privacy norms shifted too. Canadians wanted their conversations to stay private. The last party lines lingered in remote areas into the 90s, but for most of the country, the shared line era ended decades earlier. The rotary wall phone with its index card of ring patterns became a museum piece. Eaton's and Simpson's Sears wish book shopping. Every fall it arrived like clockwork, a thick glossy catalog that turned your kitchen table into a showroom. The Eaton's wish book and the Simpson's Sears catalog were more than mail-order shopping. They were national events. Kids would dog-ear the toy pages, moms would plan winter wardrobes, dads would browse power tools and sporting goods like they were sacred texts. For families in remote communities, the wish book was a lifeline. No local store? No problem. You'd fill out an order form, mail it in, and wait for your package to arrive by train or truck. From parkas and rubber boots to Christmas gifts and kitchen appliances, the catalog shaped Canadian taste from coast to coast. It was democratic retail, the same prices, the same selection, whether you lived in Toronto or Tuktoyaktuk. So what killed the wish book? Department store decline, mall competition, and logistics evolution. Eaton's went bankrupt in 1999. Sears Canada struggled for years before closing in 2018. By the late 90s, the internet was rising, and the catalog model felt clunky and outdated. Inventory costs were brutal. Shipping took too long. Consumers wanted instant gratification, not a 6-week wait. The final wish books were printed in the early 2000s. Today, flipping through a vintage catalog feels like opening a time capsule. Maple leaf price tags, rotary phones in the appliance section, and kids modeling bell-bottoms. Pure magic. Telling and preparing this video took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the video. Consumers. Distributing. If you shopped in the 70s or 80s, you knew the drill. Walk into Consumers Distributing, grab a catalog, circle the item you wanted with a tiny golf pencil, fill out a slip with the product number, hand it to the clerk, wait. Sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 20. Sometimes they'd come back and say, "Sorry, out of stock." It was retail roulette. But when it worked, Consumers Distributing was a bargain hunter's paradise. Small appliances, cameras, toys, electronics, all at prices that undercut department stores. The chain exploded across Canada in the 70s, with locations in nearly every strip mall. You'd see families crowding the counter on Saturday mornings, slips in hand, hoping their item was in the back. So why did it collapse? Frustration, for one. The out-of-stock problem was maddening. Big-box retailers like Walmart and Canadian Tire offered self-serve shopping, where you could see the product, touch it, and take it home immediately. Inventory technology improved, making the paper slip system look ancient. By the mid-90s, Consumers Distributing was bleeding customers. The chain closed its doors in 1996. Those gray counters, numbered bins, and tiny golf pencils. Now just memories of a retail experiment that couldn't adapt. The Canadian stubby beer bottle. Short, brown, and unmistakable. The stubby beer bottle was Canada's national standard from 1962 to the early 80s. Every brewery used the same 341-milliliter bottle. Labatt, Molson, O'Keefe, didn't matter. Stubby was the look. The design was brilliant, sturdy, stackable, and perfect for returnables. You'd buy a 6-pack, drain it during hockey night in Canada, and return the empties for a deposit refund. The stubby was peak Canadian efficiency. A uniform bottle meant breweries could share washing and reuse infrastructure. Less waste, lower costs, and a design that fit every fridge in the country. It became iconic. You'd see stubbies at cottage weekends, backyard barbecues, and hockey rinks across the nation. So what killed the stubby? Marketing and ego. By the early 80s, brewers wanted brand differentiation. Long neck bottles offered more label space and a sleeker look that appealed to younger drinkers. Export markets preferred long necks too, especially in the U.S. In 1983, Labatt and Molson switched to long necks, and the stubby era ended almost overnight. A few smaller breweries held on into the 90s, but the battle was lost. Today, craft breweries occasionally release stubby throwbacks as nostalgia plays, but the original universal stubby? A relic of a simpler time. Smoking sections in restaurants and on planes. Smoking or non-smoking? It was the question every hostess asked from the 60s through the 90s. Restaurants were divided, planes had smoking sections, even hospital waiting rooms had ashtrays. Smoking wasn't just allowed, it was woven into the fabric of daily life. On a domestic flight, you'd buckle in, and the no smoking light would blink off once you reached cruising altitude. Passengers would light up, and within minutes, a haze would settle over the cabin. Ashtrays were built into armrests. Flight attendants would empty them mid-flight. It was normal. At family diners, the non-smoking section was often just a few tables near the kitchen. The smoke drifted everywhere anyway. What changed? Science and policy. By the 80s, research on secondhand smoke was undeniable. Provincial and municipal governments started passing bylaws. Airlines followed suit. banning smoking on domestic flights first, then international. By the 2000s, restaurant smoking bans were nearly universal across Canada. The metal seat-back ashtrays were removed. The smoking or non question disappeared. Today, younger Canadians can't fathom lighting up on a plane or in a restaurant. But for those who lived it, the smell of cigarette smoke mixed with coffee and bacon is an olfactory time machine. Ditto sheets and overhead projectors in class. If you went to school between the 60s and the 80s, you know the smell. Fresh ditto sheets, still damp with purple ink, carried a sweet chemical scent that students would inhale like it was some sort of ritual. The spirit duplicator, better known as the ditto machine, was the classroom workhorse. Teachers would crank out worksheets, and you'd get a stack of lavender-tinted pages still warm from the drum. Then there was the overhead projector. A teacher would scribble on an acetate sheet with a squeaky marker while the machine hummed and glowed. You'd sit in the half-dark, squinting at the wall, trying to copy notes before the teacher wiped the slate clean. It was low-tech magic. If the bulb burned out, the lesson stopped. If the acetate slipped, you'd watch your teacher wrestle with it in front of the class. Why did these tools vanish? Photocopiers arrived in the 70s and quickly outpaced ditto machines. They were faster, cleaner, and produced crisper copies. Desktop publishing software in the 80s made it easy for teachers to design and print handouts. By the 90s, digital projectors and computer labs were the future. Ditto sheets and overhead projectors were rolled into storage closets and eventually junked. But the smell? If you know, you know. Paper routes with coin changer belts. For thousands of Canadian kids, the paper route was the first job. You'd wake up before school, load a canvas bag with evening papers, hop on your bike, and hit the streets. In winter, you'd navigate ice and snow, fingers frozen even through gloves. The real ritual came on collection day. You'd knock on doors with a metal coin changer belt clinking at your waist, collecting quarters, loonies, and the occasional tip. The paper route taught you the map of your own town. You knew every shortcut, every dog, every customer who tipped well, and everyone who pretended not to be home. It was independence. It was responsibility. It was cold, hard cash you'd earned yourself. So why did paper routes disappear? Newspaper decline for one. As print circulation collapsed in the 90s and 2000s, routes were consolidated. Morning delivery became standard, and papers switched to adult carriers in cars. Auto pay replaced door-to-door collection. The internet gutted the industry. By the 2010s, the classic kid-on-a-bike paper route was nearly extinct. That handlebar basket, the canvas bag, the clacking coin changer, museum pieces from a bygone economy, drive-in movie nights, load the kids in pajamas, pack snacks, drive to the edge of town where a giant screen glows against the prairie sky. You'd pull into a spot, hang a crackling metal speaker on your car window, and settle in for a double feature under the stars. Drive-in movies were summer magic from the 60s through the 80s. Drive-ins were Canadian rites of passage, first dates, family nights, teenagers sneaking into trunks to avoid admission. The speaker audio was tinny and full of static, but it didn't matter. You'd watch a Western, then a horror flick, then drive home with bug spray and popcorn kernels all over the back seat. At their peak in the 70s, there were over 200 drive-ins across Canada. So what killed them? Real estate pressure, for one. Drive-ins needed huge lots, and as land values rose, owners cashed out. Multiplexes with better sound and climate control lured audiences indoors. VCRs and home video made staying home more appealing. By the 90s, most drive-ins had closed. A handful survive today as retro novelties, but the golden age, long gone. That neon marquee, the rows of speaker poles, the smell of summer night grass, pure nostalgia. Woolworth, Woolco, Zeller's lunch counters. Before food courts, there were lunch counters. Tucked at the back of Woolworth, Woolco, or Zeller's, These counters served cheap, cheerful comfort food: grilled cheese, fries, gravy, and bottomless coffee. You'd sit on a chrome stool, elbow to elbow with strangers, eating before you finished your shopping. These lunch counters were community hubs. Seniors would meet for morning coffee. Moms would bring kids for a quick bite after buying school supplies. The menus were laminated, the ketchup came in plastic squeeze bottles, and the whole vibe was warm and unpretentious. It wasn't fancy, it was home. What killed the lunch counter? Big box retail and food courts. As chains like Walmart took over, the old department store model collapsed. Woolco sold to Walmart in 1994. Zellers was absorbed by Target, then liquidated in 2013. Food courts in malls offered more variety, and fast food chains were faster. The lunch counter, with its slow-cooked charm, couldn't compete. Today, those chrome stools and laminated menus live only in memory and vintage photos. Long-distance calling rituals. Wait until after 6, it's cheaper. If you grew up in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, you knew the rules. Long-distance calls cost serious money. Families taped charts to the wall by the phone, evening rates, weekend rates, zone maps. Calling your cousin in Vancouver from Halifax? You'd plan it like a military operation. Collect calls were an art form. Operator, collect call from, and you'd squeeze your name and message into the announcement. From John, pick me up at 6. The operator would sigh. Your mom would laugh. Sometimes she'd accept, sometimes she'd decline and drive to the station anyway. It was a game everyone played. Long-distance rates shaped how families stayed connected. You didn't chat casually. You gave updates, confirmed plans, and hung up fast. Area codes meant something. Dialing 1 before a number felt expensive. It was. What changed the game? Deregulation in the 80s started bringing prices down. Calling cards in the 90s made long distance more predictable. Then cell phones, VoIP services like Skype, and flat-rate mobile plans obliterated the old pricing models. By the 2000s, calling across the country cost nothing. That taped chart by the wall phone? Unnecessary. The ritual? Extinct. Salada hockey coins and bottle cap collectibles. Every Canadian kid in the 60s knew the thrill. You'd peel back the lid on a Sheriff pudding cup, and there it was, an aluminum-look NHL player coin. Or you'd pop the cap off a soda bottle and find a trivia question or team logo printed inside. These weren't just freebies, they were currency. At recess, trades went down like stock exchanges. I'll give you 2 leafs for a Habs Bellevaux. You'd slide coins into cardboard album sheets trying to complete the set. Salada Tea did the same thing, hockey coins tucked into boxes. It was a nationwide craze. Lunch boxes were full of them. School desks had hidden stashes. Why did these collectibles disappear? Marketing rules tightened in the 70s. Premiums got more expensive to produce. Brands shifted to different promotions, coupons, contests, stickers. By the 80s, the coin in the pudding era was over. Kids moved on to hockey cards and video games. Today, vintage Sheriff coins sell on eBay to nostalgic collectors. But the lunchbox economy of the 60s? A relic. Imperial gallons at the gas pump. Pull into a gas station in 1975, and the price board would read cents per gallon. Speed limits were in miles per hour. Your odometer clicked off miles. Recipes called for pounds and ounces. Canada measured life in imperial units, inherited from Britain. Then came metrication. In 1970, the federal government committed to switching Canada to the metric system. It rolled out gradually over the next decade. Gas pumps switched to liters in 1979. Speed limit signs went from mph to kmh. Weather reports moved to Celsius. Grocery stores weighed produce in kilograms. For Canadians who lived through it, the switch was confusing and divisive. Some adapted quickly, others clung to miles and gallons. Older folks kept conversion charts in their wallets. Your dad's glove box had a table for imperial to metric conversions. gas station pumps had dual displays for a while, showing both gallons and liters. Today, Canada is officially metric, but imperial units linger. People still talk about height in feet, weight in pounds, and ovens in Fahrenheit. But the gas pump reading gal, that's history. The highway sign showing MPH, long gone. Metrication was Canada's quiet revolution, and it reshaped how an entire country measured the world. Lawn darts in the backyard heavy, weighted, and tipped with metal. Lawn darts, known as jarts, were summer backyard entertainment from the 60s through the 80s. You'd set up plastic rings on the lawn, stand back, and lob the darts in an arc. The goal was to land inside the ring. The reality was dodging incoming missiles. Lawn darts were everywhere. Cottage weekends, family reunions, neighborhood barbecues. Kids played, adults played, everyone played, often while holding a beer. It was cheap, simple fun, until it wasn't. By the late 80s, injury reports started piling up. Emergency rooms saw puncture wounds, head injuries, and worse. In 1989, the Canadian government banned the sale of lawn darts. Retailers pulled stock. Existing sets were urged to be destroyed. The game vanished almost overnight. Today, finding a vintage jart set is rare. Most were trashed or tucked into attic corners and forgotten. That sun-faded ring on the grass, the metallic glint of a dart stuck upright in the lawn, memories from a less safety-conscious era, bank passbooks and Friday paycheck lines. Your bank balance lived in a little booklet. Every deposit, every withdrawal, stamped in green ink by a teller. The passbook was your financial record, and you guarded it carefully. Lose it, and you'd have a mess to sort out. Fridays were payday. You'd line up at the bank with your paper paycheck, waiting to cash it or deposit it. The teller would stamp your passbook, hand you your cash, and you'd walk out ready to buy groceries or hit the mall. It was a weekly ritual across Canada. Banks were packed on Friday afternoons and Saturday mornings. What killed the system? ATMs arrived in the 70s and spread rapidly through the 80s. Suddenly, you could access cash 24/7 without waiting in line. Interact debit cards rolled out in the late 80s, letting you pay directly from your account. Direct deposit became standard in the 90s, eliminating paper paychecks entirely. Online banking in the 2000s moved everything digital. The passbook, with its rubber date stamp and green ink entries, became obsolete. The Friday payday line disappeared. Today, most young Canadians have never held a passbook or cashed a physical paycheck. Banking moved from ritual to invisible transaction. Faster, yes, but a little less human. Before you go, hit that like button if this brought back memories. Which disappeared habit do you miss most? The milkman's morning routine, Saturday mornings flipping through the wish book, those stubby bottles during hockey games? Let us know in the comments.